The year is 1942. Amid the smoke and chaos of war, a soldier's diary is found, its pages whispering of a forbidden love that was never meant to be remembered. Decades later, a young historian opens those same pages and discovers that the past is not as silent as it seems. Every word she reads pulls her deeper into a mystery, one written in ink, blood, and love that refused to die. But when the final page turns, she realizes some secrets are not meant to be unearthed. The rain fell in steady whispers against the old farmhouse roof. Each drop sounded like a memory trying to escape. The air inside smelled with rot, forgotten books, and age. Amelia Hart, 24 years old, stood beneath the dim attic light, brushing cobwebs from her brown curls. Her hands were trembling, not from fear, but from the pull of something ancient, something waiting. She had returned to her late grandfather's house in Yorkshire after his passing. He had been a soldier in the Second World War, Captain Harold Hart, a man of quiet smiles and heavier secrets. While clearing the attic, Amelia's eyes caught the edge of a rusted metal trunk buried beneath old uniforms and faded newspapers. The trunk surface was bruised with dents and scars of time. Its lock was half broken, covered in a thin film of dust. Amelia knelt, the wooden floor creaking beneath her knees. Her fingers traced the letters scratched into the lid, H. Hart, 1943. She took a deep breath and opened it. Inside lay a pile of yellowed papers tied with a blue ribbon, a few military badges, and a small leather diary. The leather was cracked, and the scent of age was thick, ink, dust, and faint traces of something floral. A lavender perfume. Her chest tightened. She had never known her grandfather to speak of love. He was always alone after her grandmother's death, always staring out the window, as if waiting for something or someone to return. Amelia untied the ribbon and opened the diary. The first page read, Private Journal of Captain Harold Hart, 1943. Not for official record. Her fingers trembled again. She turned the page slowly. The first entry began with a line. To her, I write though she may never read these words. The war has taken many things, but it cannot take her from my heart. Amelia's breath caught. Her heart began to pound as if the house itself could hear it. She read further. The next entry spoke of a woman named Elise. No last name, only a description. Her hair shines like sunlight through smoke. Her voice soft as rain on glass. Elise. Amelia whispered the name into the empty attic, her voice barely a breath. Who was Elise? The next line froze her where she sat. She is not supposed to exist. Not here. Not on this side of the war. The attic light flickered once, as thunder rolled in the distance. Amelia could almost feel her grandfather's voice echoing through the years, trapped inside those words. Rain hammered harder against the windows. The air grew colder, the pages fluttering as if the diary wished to speak on its own. A single photograph slipped out, a black and white image of a young woman standing near a ruined wall. She wore a floral dress beneath a military coat, and her eyes, even in gray tones, looked alive, defiant, secretive. Amelia turned the photograph over. On the back was written, in faded ink, My Elise, France, 1943. For the day peace returns, and we are free. A sudden knock echoed from below. Once, twice, slow and heavy. Amelia froze, her pulse quickening. She was sure she had locked the front door when she came in. The wind howled outside. But this sound, this knock, had come from within the house. She rose slowly, the diary still clutched in her hand. The floorboards moaned as she moved toward the attic stairs. Her breath was shallow, the sound of her heartbeat loud in her ears. Hello, she called softly. No answer. Another knock, closer now. It came from the hole below. Amelia stepped down the creaking staircase, every step dragging her deeper into the silence that followed. When she reached the bottom, she saw the front door still shut tight. But something had changed. On the table near the door, where before there had been only dust, lay a single, fresh lavender flower. The scent matched the one from the diary. And though the house was locked, the rain outside unbroken, Amelia suddenly felt she was not alone. The storm had not ceased through the night. Thunder rolled across the moors like distant cannon fire, and lightning flashed against the cracked windows. Amelia sat near the old fireplace, wrapped in her grandfather's wool blanket, the diary open upon her lap. Yet her eyes were not on the words. They were fixed upon the lavender flower resting on the table. Its petals looked impossibly fresh. There was no lavender in bloom this season, and no one had entered the locked house. She rose, approached it slowly, and touched a petal with her fingertip. Cold, wet, as though plucked moments ago from rain-soaked ground. Her pulse quickened. She looked around. Shadows twisted across the faded wallpaper as the fire crackled low. The air seemed thicker, humming faintly, like the moment before lightning strikes. Amelia whispered, "Grandfather?" The name trembled on her lips. No reply came, only the sigh of wind through the old chimney. Still, she felt eyes upon her. Not threatening, just watching. She turned back to the diary. The next entry was dated November 12, 1943. Her grandfather's handwriting had grown shakier, the ink blotched from hurried strokes. The orders are clear, no contact with the locals. Yet she came to the field hospital again. Said she had news, said she had seen something. I wanted to tell her to stay away, but I could not when she looked at me like that. Amelia's hands tightened around the pages. She could almost hear the words spoken aloud, her grandfather's voice young and unsure. The next line chilled her. "If anyone finds out, they will call it betrayal." Lightning flashed again, a white glare flooding the room. For a moment, Amelia saw something by the window. A shadow, a faint outline of a woman's figure. She blinked, and it was gone. Her breath hitched. She walked slowly to the window, her bare feet pressing against the cold wooden floor. Outside, the rain shimmered over the fields, silver against the darkness. No one was there. Yet when she turned back to the table, the lavender flower had moved. It now rested upon the open diary, directly across the words. She came to the field hospital again. The scent was stronger now, gentle, floral, almost soothing. Amelia's fear began to soften, replaced by curiosity. She flipped to the next page. Elise's French. Her brother fought for the resistance. She hides letters for us, carries food when she can. I told her it is dangerous, but she only smiles. Says love is always dangerous. I do not know what to call this feeling, but it burns through every uniform I wear. A tear slipped down Amelia's cheek. The handwriting was full of warmth and conflict, a soldier torn between duty and heart. She leaned back, whispering the words aloud. Love is always dangerous. At that very moment, the house gave a soft groan. The lights flickered once. Then she heard it, faint but unmistakable, a woman's voice whispering in French. It came from the hallway. Amelia stood frozen. She knew only a few French words, yet something about the tone sent a shiver through her spine. It was soft, almost mournful. Then silence. She took a candle, its flame wavering as she stepped into the dark hall. The scent of lavender followed her. Her bare toes brushed against something cold on the floor. A photograph. The same one she had found earlier, Elise standing in her floral dress near the ruined wall. But now there was a faint smudge of color across her cheek, pink, fresh, as though the ink had come alive again. Amelia lifted it, staring at the eyes in the picture. For an instant, just one, she could have sworn the eyes blinked. The candle flame fluttered violently and went out. The house fell into absolute silence. Except, somewhere deep below, beneath the floorboards, came the faint creak of footsteps. Someone was moving in the cellar, and when Amelia whispered, "Who is there?" the voice that answered was not her own. A woman's whisper, fragile as mist. He promised he would come back. The whisper lingered in the air long after it had spoken. Amelia stood still, the darkness pressing around her like thick velvet. Her heart pounded in her ears, heavy, wild, and uneven. The candle had rolled to the floor. She fumbled for her phone, the screen's glow slicing through the shadows. Dust motes swirled in the beam, drifting like ghostly ash. She whispered again, "Who said that?" Silence. Only the faint hiss of wind slipping through old walls. Then a sound. A creak. Soft, deliberate. It came from beneath her feet. The cellar door was at the far end of the hall, half hidden behind a tattered curtain. She had never opened it before. Her grandfather had once told her it was unsafe. Rotted steps, broken beams, nothing worth seeing. But now, that warning felt like something else. A cover, a secret. Her phone's light trembled as her hand reached for the doorknob. It was icy cold, the chill biting into her skin. The metal groaned as she turned it. The smell of damp earth and mold spilled upward, thick and stale. Step by step, she descended into the dark. The air grew heavier, colder. The sound of rain above faded until there was nothing but her own breathing. And then a faint humming, a melody, low, haunting, a woman's voice again. The cellar was lined with old shelves, jars of rusted nails, and the skeletons of forgotten tools. In the corner stood an old crate covered in a moth-eaten cloth. The humming seemed to come from there. Amelia's pulse raced. She knelt and lifted the cloth. Beneath it was another box, wooden, smaller than the trunk upstairs. A carving on its lid read EL, the same initials as Elise. Her hands shook as she lifted the lid. Inside were letters tied together with a red ribbon, each envelope marked with a French post seal dated 1943. Her grandfather's name was written on every one, Captain Harold Hart. The lavender scent was stronger here, fresh as if the letters had just been sealed. She pulled one out, unfolding the fragile paper carefully. The handwriting was elegant, looping, distinctly feminine. Mon cher Harold, it began, the war grows darker. They are watching us. If you receive this, do not come tonight. I will leave something for you beneath the wall by the old church. Promise me you will wait. For love must not die, even here. Amelia's throat tightened. She could feel Elise's desperation in the words, love surviving where it should not. The humming stopped. Something moved behind her. She turned sharply, light darting across the cellar. Nothing, only shadows. And yet a single footprint appeared slowly in the dust near her feet. Not hers. She stepped back, trembling. Another footprint followed. Then another, each one sinking into the dust, leading toward the far wall. Her mind screamed to run, but her body refused. She followed the prints instead. The wall they led to was made of stone, rough and damp, and in its center, hidden beneath years of date, was a faint outline of a small wooden panel. A hidden compartment. She pushed at it, but it did not move. Then, softly, from the air around her, that same woman's whisper, "Under the lavender, he hid my name." Amelia's gaze darted back to the box. Beneath the letters lay a small dried sprig of lavender. She lifted it, brushed away the dust beneath, and there, carved faintly into the bottom of the box, was a word, Elise. The wall groaned. The hidden panel loosened. She pushed again, and it opened with a sigh of cold air. Inside was a small tin box wrapped in a piece of torn uniform fabric. Her grandfather's. She opened it slowly. Inside lay a ring, gold, delicate, engraved with two initials intertwined, H and E. Tears blurred Amelia's vision. It was a secret love, buried under war and silence. But before she could take another breath, the air in the cellar shifted. The lavender scent thickened until it stung her throat, and through the haze of her tears, a shape began to form beside the wall. A woman, faint, glowing softly, in a floral dress and military coat. Elise. Her face was calm, but her eyes held centuries of sorrow. She lifted a hand, pointing to the ring. Then her lips moved, whispering words Amelia could barely hear. He promised, but he never came. The cellar lights flickered once, then died. Amelia was left in total darkness. Only the faint sound of weeping remained. The darkness in the cellar was complete. Amelia could not see her own hands. Only the echo of soft weeping drifted through the cold air, fading and returning like a tide. Her breath came fast, sharp, uneven. She whispered into the dark, "Elise, is that you?" No answer, only a faint rustle, as if fabric brushed against stone. She held the ring tightly in her palm. It was warm now, unnaturally so, as though someone, or something, had just held it before her. The weeping stopped, and in that stillness, the air seemed to pulse. A presence hovered near her, unseen but undeniable. Amelia forced herself to speak again. "Please, tell me what happened to you." The silence trembled. Then a whisper, faint, fragile, filled the room. "The promise was broken. The war took him from me, but my heart stayed." The phone light flickered back on by itself, its dim glow revealing the outline of the wall where Elise had appeared. The stone looked slightly shifted, and on it, Amelia noticed something new, faint scratches forming words. She leaned closer, her voice shaking. It read, "Read the last letter." Amelia turned back to the wooden box. Her fingers tore through the red ribbon, scattering letters across the dirt floor. Each envelope carried words of longing and hope. But at the very bottom, she found one sealed in black wax, unopened. Her grandfather's name written on it in trembling ink. She sat against the cold wall and broke the seal. Inside was a single page, its ink faded but still legible. "Harold, they have found out. They say I am a traitor for loving you. I hear the boots outside. I will not run. I will wait where we met by the wall, beneath the church bell. If the war ends and you return, you will find me there. My love does not fear time. Yours, always, Elise." Amelia's eyes blurred with tears. She pressed the letter to her chest. The air around her stirred, a faint warmth brushing against her cheek, like a hand reaching through memory. A single whisper followed, so soft it was almost breath. "Find the wall." And then, silence again. The cellar light flickered once more, steady this time. The lavender scent faded, leaving only the damp earth and the sound of Amelia's heartbeat. She climbed the cellar steps slowly, clutching the ring and letter in her hands. When she reached the top, the air of the house felt different, lighter, though the storm still raged outside. In the living room, the diary lay open on the table. Its pages fluttered as though moved by unseen fingers. A single entry stood visible. December 1943. The orders came too late. The resistance safe house was destroyed. I searched the ruin for days, but there was no trace of her, only a lavender flower in the ashes. They called me a fool for mourning her. But every night I hear her voice when the rain falls. Amelia's heart clenched. The same flower that appeared to her. The same scent. Elise had never left. She sat beside the fire again, staring at the flames until dawn began to pale the sky. Sleep came in fragments, dreams filled with whispers and a woman's shadow moving through smoke and fire. When morning light finally broke through windows, she rose and packed her coat. There was only one thing to do now. She would find the old church. The diary mentioned the year, the region in France where Harold had served. Amelia traced a map her grandfather had drawn in the back, a small town near the Summer River. The coordinates were faint, but still there. As she gathered the diary, letters, and ring into her bag, something caught her eye. In the corner of the table, etched faintly into the wood, were words she swore had not been there before. "Thank you for hearing me." The lavender scent returned, brief, soft, almost like a sigh of relief. Amelia's hands trembled as she whispered, "I will find you." Outside, the rain had stopped. The moors glistened beneath the morning sun. But as she locked the farmhouse door behind her, she did not see the faint shape that lingered in the window, a young woman in a floral dress, watching her leave. And just before Amelia's car disappeared down the road, that same soft whisper drifted through the empty house once more. "Do not let my story fade." The road to northern France stretched like a ribbon through the mist. Amelia drove in silence, the sound of tires humming softly against the wet asphalt. Field of wheat and poppies blurred past the windows, red dots scattered like blood against gold. The diary rested on the seat beside her, its pages heavy with ghosts. She had crossed the channel that morning, the ring and letters tucked safely in her coat pocket. Each mile felt like a journey deeper into someone else's memory. By late afternoon, the mist began to lift. In the distance, she saw the outline of an old village. Stone cottages, crumbling fences, and, rising from the heart of it all, a church tower half swallowed by ivy. She parked the car beside the road and stepped out. The air smelled of wet soil and smoke from distant chimneys. Crows circled lazily overhead. As she walked toward the church, she noticed a small bridge over a slow-moving river. The summer, quiet now, though history had painted its banks with tragedy. She paused there for a moment, staring at her reflection trembling in the water. She almost expected to see another face beside Hayes, the shadow of a soldier or the trace of a woman lost in time. The church stood at the edge of the village. Its doors were heavy oak, scarred and splintered. Half the roof had caved in. The bell tower leaned slightly, as if bowing to the years. Inside, dust drifted through the air like pale snow. Pews were overturned. Candles melted into hardened puddles of wax. A single stained-glass window remained intact, a figure of an angel holding a sword and a lily. The sunlight through it painted the stone floor in colors of red and gold. Amelia whispered softly, "Elise?" The word echoed faintly. Then a sound, faint footsteps, but not Hayes. Her heart leapt. She turned sharply. A man stood near the back of the church, tall and lean, his hands tucked into the pockets of a gray coat. He looked about 30, with kind eyes and a face worn by travel. He spoke in gentle English, though his accent was French. "You are not from here, mademoiselle." Amelia steadied her voice. "I am looking for something, or someone. A woman named Elise. She lived here during the war." The man's expression changed. "Elise Lauron?" he asked quietly. Amelia nodded. "Yes. You knew her?" He hesitated, his gaze drifting to the broken altar. "My grandmother spoke of her. Said she helped the resistance. Said she loved an English soldier." Amelia's breath caught. "That soldier was my grandfather." The man's eyes softened. He stepped closer, introducing himself as Luke Moreau, 29 years old, a historian who volunteered at the small museum nearby. He wore a long wool coat, his hair dark and unkempt, his boots stained with travel dust. "I have seen her name in old papers," Luke said, "but no grave, no record of her death, only whispers that she vanished one night when the soldiers came." Amelia pulled a letter from her coat, the one Elise never sent. She said she would wait by the wall near the church. Luke frowned slightly, thinking, "There is an old stone wall behind the chapel, near the river path. Most people avoid it. They say strange lights appear there some nights." Amelia's pulse quickened. "Please," she said, "take me there." They stepped out into the fading light. The air was turning cool, the sky washed in the soft gold of evening. As they walked behind the church, the ground sloped downward toward the riverbank. There it was, the wall, half crumbled, covered in moss. Its stones glistened with the day's rain. And beneath the ivy, Amelia saw faint scratches, letters carved by hand. She brushed away the green vines carefully. Each mark became clearer until the name revealed itself, Elise. Her throat tightened. The very wall Elise had written about, where she had waited. Luke stepped back quietly, giving her space. Amelia knelt, tracing the name with her fingers. The stone was cold, damp, yet she could almost feel a heartbeat beneath it. The lavender scent drifted through the air again, soft, familiar. Then the wind rose, a slow, low hum, like a whisper carried across years. The sound of a woman's voice followed, faint and distant. "He never came, but you did." Amelia froze. Luke looked around, his expression turning pale. "Did you hear that?" he asked. Amelia nodded slowly. Her eyes filled with tears. She opened her hand, showing the ring. "It belongs to her." Luke crouched beside her, watching as she placed the ring into a crack in the wall, between the letters of Elise's name. The air seemed to grow warmer. The golden light deepened, spilling over the river. For a moment, the world felt utterly still. Then, the church bell above them rang. Once, twice, though no one had touched the rope. Amelia gasped softly. Luke's eyes widened, his voice barely a whisper. "No one has heard that bell in 70 years. The final echo faded into the dusk, and when silence returned, the lavender scent lingered, gentle, peaceful, almost grateful. Amelia whispered, "She is free." But as she stood, a chill passed through her body, and for an instant she saw something move near the trees, a shadow in a soldier's uniform. Head bowed, watching. Then it vanished. The dusk deepened into a quiet blue. Wind stirred the riverbank, carrying the smell of wet leaves and stone. Amelia stood frozen, her eyes locked on the spot where she had seen the shadow of a soldier. Her heart raced, her breath sharp and shallow. Luke turned toward her, his brow furrowed. "What is it?" She hesitated, pointing to the trees. "I saw someone. There, a soldier. He was standing by the birches." Luke followed her gaze, scanning the dim light. But there was nothing now, only the soft sway of branches and the whisper of the river. He shook his head slightly. There's been no soldier here for decades. Amelia swallowed hard, though her hand still trembled. I know what I saw. Luke said nothing, only placed a hand on her shoulder. Come, he said quietly. The night grows cold. You can stay in the village. We will return in the morning. But as Amelia turned away from a wall, the faint glimmer of metal caught her eye. Half buried in the soil near the roots of a birch tree lay something small and dull. She knelt, brushing the earth away. A military tag, rusted, but still legible. Her breath caught. The engraving read, Captain Harold Hart, 1943. She nearly dropped it. Luke knelt beside her, astonished. This cannot be, he whispered. If your grandfather's tag was left here, then he must have come back. Amelia's mind spun. But her grandfather's record said he was transferred out of France before the war ended. Had he returned? Had he tried to find her? Her eyes lifted toward the river, the dark water now reflecting a faint shimmer of light. The lavender scent rose once again, stronger, as if the air itself remembered. And then she heard it, a man's voice. Faint, calm, carried on the wind. I came back for you. I was too late. Amelia froze. Her fingers clenched around the tag. Luke's eyes darted around the clearing. You heard that too, did you not? She nodded slowly. The voice came again, closer this time, filled with sorrow. I searched the ruins. I found her name carved in the stone. I stayed until the last bell fell silent. The river rippled though no wind touched it. Mist gathered above the ground, thickening into a faint outline, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in the worn uniform of an English officer. Amelia's breath hitched. Grandfather, she whispered. The figure did not move closer, but she could see his eyes, pale, kind, filled with pain. He spoke softly. I never stopped hearing her. Every night, the same dream, her standing by the wall, waiting. But I was a coward. I left when I should have stayed. Tears stung Amelia's eyes. You loved her, she said, her voice trembling. More than life itself, the voice replied. But the world was cruel then. Love was a battlefield of its own. Luke stepped back, unable to speak. The air felt charged, alive with something beyond reason. The glow around the figure pulsed gently, as though each word cost him strength. She waited for me here. I found her too late. The village burned, the wall the only thing left. I buried her name into the stone, and I buried my heart with it. Amelia stepped closer, her voice a whisper. She knows. She forgives you. I found her letters. The mist shifted. For a brief moment, the faint outline of a woman appeared beside the soldier, Elise, her hand resting over his. Their faces turned toward each other, eyes full of longing that even death had not dimmed. The lavender scent filled the clearing until the air shimmered with it. The soldier looked toward Amelia one last time. Thank you, my dear. You have given her peace. You have given me rest. The light around them brightened, soft and golden. The two figures leaned toward one another, and with a breath that sounded like the wind through leaves, they faded. Only the ring gleamed faintly from the wall, and the dog tag, warm in Amelia's palm. Luke whispered, You helped them find each other. Amelia nodded, tears glistening on her cheeks. But as she looked once more toward the church, she noticed something new, a carving that had not been there before. On the stone above the wall, two initials entwined in a heart. H+E. The river breeze stirred softly. The scent of lavender drifted away, leaving behind the faintest trace of peace. Amelia whispered, Goodbye. Luke placed a hand over his chest and murmured, May they rest where the war could not reach. As they turned to leave, the moon rose above the church tower, casting silver light across the river. And just before they disappeared down the path, the church bell rang one final time, gentle, clear, and full of love. The next morning broke soft and pale, clouds drifting like smoke across a silver sky. The village lay quiet, its cobbled streets washed clean by the night's rain. Birdsong echoed faintly through the damp air, though the church bells remained silent now. Amelia awoke in the small guest room of Luke's cottage. The bed creaked softly beneath her as she sat up, her mind heavy with fragments of dreams, the lavender field, the ruined church, and the faces of two lovers finally meeting after decades apart. On the wooden table near her bed lay the diary, open to its final page. The ink was dry, yet a single new line had appeared, faint as though written by a trembling hand. Love is never lost. It only waits to be remembered. Amelia touched the word gently. She felt no fear now, only a calm ache, a connection that stretched through blood, time, and memory. Luke knocked softly on the door. When she opened it, he stood there with 2 cups of steaming coffee and a quiet smile. "You did not sleep much," he said. "I dreamt of them," Amelia replied softly. "They were together." Luke nodded. "I think this place held its breath for years, waiting for that moment." They sat by the window, sipping in silence as mist curled over the fields. Outside, the church tower stood against the dawn, the ivy catching light like green flame. Luke turned to her. "What will you do now?" Amelia looked at the diary, her expression thoughtful. "I want to write their story," she said. "Not as a ghost tale, as a love that we'll try to erase." Luke smiled faintly. They would like that. Before leaving the village, Amelia asked Luke to take her once more to the church. He agreed, and together they walked the familiar path down to the river. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of dew and grass. When they reached the wall, the initials H+E still glimmered faintly in the morning light. The ring remained lodged within the stone crack, untouched. Amelia knelt beside it. The soil beneath her fingers was cold, but peaceful. She whispered softly, "You are remembered now." A light breeze passed through the birch trees. For a heartbeat, the leaves shimmered, a faint golden hue, though no sunlight reached them. Luke took a photograph of the wall. "Proof for history," he said, "though I doubt anyone will believe it." Amelia smiled gently. "Maybe it is not meant to be proven. Some truths belong only to the heart." As they turned to leave, Luke paused and frowned slightly. "Do you hear that?" Amelia stopped. From the church tower came a faint hum, not the bell this time, but a melody, a woman's voice, distant and soft, humming the same tune Amelia had heard in the cellar back in Yorkshire. The sound floated on the air like a lullaby, warm and sorrowful. Luke whispered, "That song, my grandmother used to hum it." Amelia looked toward the tower, eyes glistening. She heard Elise's voice too. The humming grew fainter until it faded entirely. The air returned to silence, though something gentle lingered, like the echo of love that refused to vanish. They walked back to the village in quiet reflection. At the car, Amelia turned to Luke. "Thank you," she said, "for believing me." He smiled. "I think the world needs more stories like theirs, reminders that even in war, love can survive." Amelia nodded. Then she looked once more toward the distant church and whispered under her breath, "Rest now, both of you." The lavender scent brushed past her one final time, soft as a farewell. Then it was gone. As she drove away from the village, the sky cleared, sunlight spilling across the river. In the rearview mirror, for the briefest second, she saw 2 figures standing by the wall, a man in uniform and a woman in a floral dress, their hands entwined. Then they faded into the light. A week had passed since Amelia left France. The journey back to England felt quieter than she had expected, the kind of silence that follows a story finished, yet still echoing in the soul. She had kept the diary close during the flight, tucked carefully inside her coat pocket. Even now, back in her London apartment, she could not bring herself to place it on the shelf. It felt alive, a living whisper from another time. Outside, rain drifted against the windows, tracing thin silver lines down the glass. The city light shimmered in reflection, a contrast to the soft glow of the countryside she had left behind. Amelia sat by her desk, the diary open before her. She ran her fingers over the old paper, breathing in the scent of time, ink, and faint lavender. Her laptop screen flickered beside her, the document titled "The Secret Love Hidden in the War Diaries." She had written for hours, describing everything: her grandfather Henry, the nurse Elise, the village, Luke, and the final song that carried across the tower. Yet, something still felt incomplete. There was one more page at the back of the diary, glued tightly, sealed beneath the binding. Her hands trembled as she fetched a small knife. She hesitated. "Grandfather," she whispered softly, "if there is more to your story, I will tell it with respect." The paper tore gently. Inside was a folded letter, yellowed, brittle, and marked with a single red wax seal. It bore the initials E.M., Elise Martin. Amelia's heart pounded. She unfolded the fragile paper slowly, revealing delicate handwriting in French. The words blurred through her tears, but she read aloud in a whisper, her voice trembling. My dearest Henry, the world around us falls to ash, but I still see light in your eyes. If you read this, I did not make it across the river. But know this, I loved you not for the days we had, but for the eternity they became. Do not grieve for me. Carry my love in your heart, and when the war ends, plant lavender where we met. Its scent will guide us home. Always yours, Elise. The letter slipped from Amelia's fingers. Tears ran freely down her cheeks, falling onto the ink like rain. She closed her eyes, and for a fleeting moment, she felt warmth on her shoulder, a hand, light as air, resting there. When she looked up, no one was there, but the faint scent of lavender filled the room again. Amelia smiled through the tears. She whispered, they found each other. The next morning, she drove to her family's countryside home, the old cottage where her grandfather once lived. The garden was overgrown now, wild and untended. Yet, beside the oak tree, a small patch of lavender had bloomed, pale and delicate against the gray earth. Kneeling beside it, she placed the letter in the soil and covered it gently. Then she whispered, for both of you, rest where love began. The wind stirred softly, carrying a faint melody through branches, that same lullaby once more. But this time it sounded peaceful. Later, Amelia stood at the doorway of the cottage, watching the sunset spread across the horizon. The air shimmered gold, and for a heartbeat, she thought she saw two silhouettes standing among the lavender, holding hands, smiling. Then, as the light dimmed, they faded quietly, leaving only the scent of summer and the sound of distant birds. Amelia turned back to her car, the diary now closed for the last time. Her story was finished, but theirs would live forever. She whispered as she drove away, love does not die in war. It waits to be remembered. And somewhere, in a village forgotten by time, the church bells rang once, soft, slow, and full of peace. The secret love hidden in the War Diaries is a haunting journey through time, a tale of love born in the ruins of war, bound by loss, and rediscovered generations later. It reminds us that true love leaves traces, in words, in memories, and in the hearts of those brave enough to remember. If you enjoyed this story, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe for more thrilling tales of mystery, love, and hidden histories. Turn on the bell icon so you never miss the next story that will keep you on the edge of your heart.